Okay, guys, my name's Michael Call. I am the founder and creator of Songbox, and today our special guest is Hayden Watson. Hayden is a Grammy nominated studio engineer who's worked with some of the greats and works in a particularly prominent recording studio in Canada called the Warehouse Studio. Hayden, is that correct? Is that how you say it? The Warehouse Studio, or is it just Warehouse?
Yeah, the Warehouse Studio, that is
The
correct.
Warehouse Studio, excellent. So we're going to talk about Hayden's life in the industry, some of his studio tips and tricks, some of his experience, and we'll probably touch on Songbox at some point. Otherwise, what's the point? So we'll crack into that as we go, and I'll just get started by saying hi, Hayden, sorry, and thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you joining us. A bit of
Yeah, thanks for having
backstory.
me.
No, no, you're welcome, Hayden. It's a pleasure. A bit of backstory to those listening. Hayden is a long time user of Songbox, and Hayden is I would say, the full time engineer for our co-founder Brian Adams. Would that be correct to say, Hayden?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cool. And it was actually Hayden who discovered Songbox and put it on Brian's radar. So we're eternally grateful to him for that, and we'll talk about that in a little while. We'll talk about exactly how all that happened in a little while. But first of all, Hayden, I think people would be interested to know, and I certainly am. Basically, when did you know music was your passion, and how did you get into what made you want to be an engineer specifically, or did you have another path and you fell into the engineer track through some other means? Really interested to hear your story, man. Fire away.
Yeah. Okay, so since like a really young age, I loved music. I grew up in a pretty musical family. My dad played in bands when I was a kid, so I grew up going to watch him play. And around the age of 10, I started playing drums. So I spent a lot of time in my parents' music room playing along to the old Zeppelin tracks and all that kind of stuff. Um, and I wanted to be a drummer. I didn't really set out to be an engineer in the beginning. And but when it came time, I graduated high school. I'd been playing in bands and recording the bands myself, and it was kind of turning out terribly. And so I was interested in it a little bit, but I needed to go to some sort of post-secondary school. It was a deal that I made with my parents, and they actually helped me figure out, oh, I could go to audio engineering school. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know the difference between microphones, what a compressor was. I didn't know anything. I just thought it would be cool and it would be something involved in music and I could go. And then I moved away, went to school and loved it. And it's kind of I've been doing that ever since.
Cool. What audio engineering school did you go to? Was it a dedicated one, or was it part of a more mainstream college?
It was a small dedicated technical college in London, Ontario.
Nice. So I'm already going off tangent from the planned questions that I had, right? But I'm interested in this. So you said you were playing drums, right? I love playing drums. Trade, I would trade the very limited musical skill that I have to be a great drummer. I just think I think drumming is amazing. However, being a drummer, so you got a guitar, you plug it in, and you go. Largely speaking, right? I'm oversimplifying. You're a singer, you turn up, you literally do nothing, and you're ready to go.
Yeah,
Drums is a very technical instrument. You know, there's a lot to think about with the drums. You've got a lot of sound sources. Miking up a drum kit is a bit of a speciality. So how did you manage to get all the way through to going to audio school without knowing about? You said that you didn't know about mics or compression or anything like that. But did you just play raw? Did you never make up the kit?
yeah. I never. We just had like I grew up in a really small town, so we
Mhm.
weren't maybe on top of technology, you could say. So I
Yeah,
just had one of those like those Zoom handheld recorder mics, and we would just play live in the room.
right. Get it.
And
I
you
get
can
it. I get it.
imagine how that turned out.
Yeah, I don't have to imagine, man. I am well aware of how that turned out through my own life experiences. Definitely, one
Yeah,
mic, small room, five instruments and a drum
yeah,
kit. Yeah, I know all
totally.
too well how that sounds. That's excellent. All right, cool. Thanks for that. So you went to engineering college. You loved it. You graduated. Like lots of people did that. You, however, went on to land a gig at one of the most prominent recording studios out there. Tell us about that journey. Like, did you do the usual thing where you done live sound at gigs and whatever, moved on? Like, how did you get from being, I've graduated sound engineering, I am now a engineer at a really prominent recording studio. What was what happened there?
Yeah, so I lucked out. There was a bit of a pipeline between that school and the warehouse. The
Oh, cool.
the guy who was managing at the time went to the same school, and he had some of the same teachers, and there's several other people that work here that also went to the same school, so it just kind of worked out really well in that way, where they knew Brian Gallant was the manager at the time. He knew what we were taught because he was taught the same thing, so it was easy to integrate. So I just moved out here, hoping for an internship. I had had a little bit of contact with Brian at that time.
Hmm.
Um, Moved out here with nothing decided, and then it just worked out that I got the interview, and then I started interning. I did that for 9 months, and then I was a runner for 5 or 6 years, and doing some assistant engineering at the same time. And then I met Brian Adams,
Hmm.
and he comes to town to work at the studio quite often, and I was his sort of his, I guess you could say, assistant, like his runner when he was here. So I'd make some meals, make tea, just do whatever. And there was a different engineer on the session, but it worked out one day that that engineer couldn't make it, and Brian asked me if I knew what to do, and I completely lied and said I did, and and I've been working with him ever since. And
Nice. I love that. I love that. Interesting story about lying, lying to Brian Adams. The sort of, do you remember couple of years ago now when you guys first joined up to Songbox? I phoned you at the warehouse and had a chat. Do you remember that?
yeah, yeah, I do.
Yeah. So Songbox had only been online for like weeks at that point, and but I had to kind of sell
Oh,
it as like, I was like, yeah, it's a business going, it's going really well, it's going great, we've got thousands of users, it's magic. Absolutely hadn't at that point. You know what I mean? It was brand new, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's like, but you know what I mean? You got to do what you got to do, don't you? So yeah, I find that interesting. So was there a, going off tangent again ever so slightly? Was there a moment, because obviously like the relationship between an engineer and a producer and an engineer and an artist, it's kind of like, it's an interesting dynamic, right? I've done it on kind of both sides of the fence, but mainly on the artist side. And before the call started, we were laughing about how sometimes you can get kind of crazy in a studio, and there's lots of tomfoolery, and everyone's having a laugh, but the engineer's always just like right in the middle of it, totally focused, doing his job right, totally
Yeah,
serious. But was there ever a moment where you're either with Brian or with like another artist, and something just happened, and it was like your moment, the moment where you realised this is my thing. Like I'm good at this, and this is what I'm going to do as my career. I realise that may have happened when you were at college, but just basically what I'm asking is, was there a defining moment in your early days at Warehouse when you were like, when it all made sense and all fell together?
um I think there's been a lot. I try to sort of check in with that side of things pretty often, because you can find yourself doing something really cool and not realize. But if you take a step back and you're like, oh, this is really cool. If you told me when I was 16 that I would be doing this, that's pretty cool. But when I was a younger and I was a runner, and Brian would come to the studio, I thought I really want to be his engineer,
Cool, cool.
and
I like that.
that was kind of the goal from then on.
That's cool. That sounds a bit like, going to get a little bit out there now, but it sounds a little bit like manifestation. Do you buy into that? Are you aware of what that is?
I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah,
I say maybe I medium buy into it. I
yeah. I
think,
do buy. I do buy into it. I really do. It's like, I'm going to make this happen. This is going to happen for me, and you just put it out there and put it out there, and it happens, and look where you are now, man. I think that's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
thanks.
I definitely do think that's pretty cool that you're just like, I'm going to I'm going to land that gig, and then you did. I think that's awesome. Okay, I'm going to go back on track a little bit, because I'm going off piste. You've got a big session. You're midway through the session. What's a day in the life of an engineer, or what's a day in the life as Hayden Watson engineer? I'll say that
Yeah, okay.
again. Hayden Watson, Grammy nominated engineer. What's a day in the life when you're in a big session?
Well, one of my favorite things about this job is that every day is different. There's something completely different happens every day, whether it's a different song or you're recording a different instrument, or the goal is just always different, I find. Um, the day-to-day goal, obviously, the end game is pretty much the same project to project, but
Yeah,
it's hard to say day to day what would actually happen. But if I'm recording, then I show up, we get set up, get some sounds happening, and then we probably record for the morning and then put stuff together for the afternoon. And then if we're mixing, it's probably similar where I show up and spend a few hours by myself in the studio and then either send something away or have someone come in and listen. And I also manage the warehouse. So doing that within the cracks, taking breaks and walking around, make sure all the sessions are cool. And we
cool.
have four different rooms here, so there's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, cool. I didn't realise you had that role too. Talk to me a little bit. Again, this is off script. A little bit about mixing. Like, do you do mixing, or do you like? Are you Yeah, simple question, man. Do you mix?
Yeah, I do.
Hmm,
Yeah. Um,
cool.
I love mixing. It's actually my favorite part of the
Yep,
project.
totally get that. I love mixing too. I just, unfortunately, I'm rubbish at it, but I do. I find the process totally fascinating. That's cool. Is that something you'd like to do more of in the future?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I've been
cool.
doing sort of more and more of it as time goes on, and I would like to continue growing that for sure.
Nice. This is the most important question of the afternoon or for the morning for you, Hayden. Have you ever worked with Nickelback?
I have not.
Ah,
They
right.
have worked at the warehouse many times though. It was
Yeah, I
just
saw that. I was doing my research last night, and I saw they've recorded a lot there, which makes
yeah,
sense. Obviously, they're local.
yeah,
Okay,
totally
so
before
this is
my
the
time.
deal. This is the deal we're making now, right? Next time they're in the studio and you're working, I'm coming over and I'm going to be your runner for the day, right? I will be Hayden Watson's runner for the
That
Nickelback
sounds great.
sessions, right? Listen, man. That's a thing. That's happening.
Yeah,
That's it.
we'll make it happen.
Yep, done now. Awesome. Okay, moving on. I'm, I am actually not joking. I don't know if you are, but anyway, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it off camera.
I'm good.
Right, moving on. Moving on. As I've mentioned a few times, Hayden Watson, Grammy nominated engineer, you are now Grammy nominated. I'd like to know what that feels like, how you found out about it, and has it affected your career at all, or hasn't it, basically?
Well, I mean, I was with Brian so it was Brian's song that was nominated. It wasn't myself
Yep,
nominated. Um, but we were working together when the nominations came through, and it was exciting. We were both really happy and excited about it, and yeah, it was really cool. To be honest, it's not something that I think about much past that. It was it was great. It meant that we made a great thing, and I
yep,
got to be heavily involved in that. So am very proud of that. But it doesn't take away from there's lots left to go. I have lots left to learn. I have lots to improve still. So
yep,
it's I guess you could just say fuel for the fire, if anything.
yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And we're going to talk about later on. We're going to talk about what's coming for you. Um, okay, I'm interested in that. It happened. It was nice. It was great. You're always going to be proud of it, but then you move on. I think there's a lot of people that would maybe hang their hat on that, and I think it's pretty cool that you're like, that happened. Nice. It was good. I'm proud of it, but still lots to do. I think that's a really cool attitude, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Um, right. So we spoke a few minutes ago about mid-session, day to day. I think for some of the engineering types who may end up watching this, you've got a a big session that's about to start. So say you've got a big artist or a big session coming up in a few days. How do you prep for that, or do you need to, or is it just clockwork for you now? Like, what do you do to prepare for a big session?
I would definitely do as much prep as I can. To say we're gonna do a tracking day in Studio 2 with the full band, so we have a huge tracking room. We can set everyone to play at the same time. So I would talk to whoever is in charge, the producer or the leader of the band, find out who's going to play what at what times. Maybe there's some demos that I could listen to get sort of a vibe on what sound to go for. I would, if they have anything else released, I would listen to that to check it out just to for a vibe, and then I would put together an input list with all of the microphones I want to use, and then I would usually change it last minute when the session starts anyway. Um, and then always I always try to do something different every time because I think that's how you get better, you know. This
Cool,
didn't work that well last time, so I'll do this, or this looks cool, so it's probably going to sound cool, something like that.
cool, cool. Like it. And I think moving on from that, actually, quite nicely, I wanted to ask you about some technical stuff. So I've got a lot of experience in the studio on the artist side, and I've got a little bit of experience actually recording and mixing myself, a little bit. So I'm quite interested in the technical side of it in a geeky, really amateur hobbyist way. But from someone like you, who this is your life, this is your career, you're good at it, you're at the top of your game. Like plugins, are you a plugins guy or are you a hardware guy?
I like both. Um, we usually mix through. Brian has an old SSL 4K here.
Hmm.
I mix through that whenever possible, which is like 99% of the time, and I find that it does something for me that I don't know how to achieve. And it does it with no effort. It just is always better if I mix through the SSL. And I can't explain that technically other than it just is. I don't know if it's because you're not looking at numbers on a screen and you're listening to your ears only, and you
Yeah.
have the ability to just completely change levels super quickly, and it's just more fun.
No, I get that. I obviously don't get it to the extent that you do, but I do get. So when we were back in the day mixing with a producer called Keith Olson, he would either make us face away from the screens, or he would turn all the screens off, and he'd
Hmm.
be like, "It's like this is an exercise for your ears, not your eyes. Like just use your ears." So I kind of do get that. I think that's pretty cool. And with regards to, and this is something I think a lot of hobbyists and amateurs can fall into a real trap with, and I'm genuinely interested to hear the take from an expert. So in the past, I've spent personally a lot of money on reverbs, right, and compressors and things like that. Does it make a difference? Is a reverb a reverb a reverb, or or is there a case where someone's coming in, I'll use this reverb, and that person's coming in, I'll use this different reverb? Like that may sound like a really stupid question, but it's because I'm coming at it from a very amateur standpoint. So
No, that's not
would
stupid
you,
at
would
all.
you, yep,
I think for different, it's kind of a yes and no. I I too have spent a lot of money on plugins and they've been extremely helpful.
mhm,
Um, but I think in the end, the reverb isn't going to make or break the song. Um, but I do use lots of different, maybe you use an EMT 250 if you're doing a synth based sort of 80s type song, or you're going to use the AMS reverb on a snare drum if you're looking for something big and retro. I use a lot of plugins as well as the SSL,
yeah.
so I do believe that they are super helpful. And the more expensive ones generally tend to be better quality and a little bit closer to the real thing. So I think there is value
Okay,
in that.
that's cool. That's cool. That's good to know. But I think what's super impressive, and a lot of the engineers I've worked with in the past had the same take on it, is that you would know I've got this instrument to record and this vibe or this person. You would know I need this type of reverb. Whereas guys like me will just try everything until they get something that sounds right. I think
Right.
it's always a skill. I've really admired. I really admire that knowledge that where you just know this is the type of reverb that I need, and you just go and do it first time. Like I've always found that mind blowing that you guys who are really real sound engineers have that level of knowledge and skill. It blows my mind. I think it's very admirable. So on a
I
similar
think I
vibe,
just came from doing that though, from
yeah,
trying
yeah, I
everything,
guess, yeah, I
putting the
guess,
time in, and also watching the people that came before me, who
yep,
had done stuff during that era, so they knew exactly what was used or.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think it's really cool. I would. So this is another one. I think I would like to be an engineer, but I think I think I'm mistaken on that one because I think I only like doing my own stuff. I think working with other people's stuff and sometimes maybe things you don't like or people you don't like, that must be challenging. And actually, I'm just going to jump in and ask about that. Challenging experiences in the studio. Can you talk about any and how do you deal with that as an engineer? Because personalities are personalities, and you must come across a lot of them. How do you deal with that in the studio as an engineer when you've got a not great vibe happening?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think I try to go about it here, and I think we all do at the studio, is that we're on the artist's side or the client's side. We never want to make a rift between that. And if somebody's going for a certain kind of vibe and they want it to be this way around them, well, you're the boss. It's your space.
Hmm.
It's your record. It's your outcome that we are helping you find. So just try not to take anything too personal.
Yeah,
Just roll with the vibes and just keep calm and keep kind of quiet, and everything kind of works out.
yeah. I think one of the great skills you need to have to be an engineer or a producer is I think you've got to be a really good empath, and by that I mean I think you really need to know people and how to deal with people because certainly from my own experience and experiences that I'm aware of, it's sometimes a tricky environment. But anyway, the less said about that, the better.
I've
So
heard lots of horror stories, but I got to say that I've been very lucky to only work with people that are awesome. So I don't have a lot of experience. I don't have a lot of bad experience to speak of. So that's good. I'm
excellent.
thankful for that.
That's good. There's plenty of time, Hayden. Plenty of time.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Right. Okay. I'm moving on. Moving on. So I've got a few more technical questions about studio stuff, but I'm going to go to what's your favourite thing to record? And I think because of the introduction that we had, I might know the answer. But what do you get excited about recording the most?
Definitely drums. You got it.
Yeah, yeah. I thought you might say that. So talk to me. Oh, hold on. I'm getting a phone call. I'm getting a phone call. Hello, sir.
How come I can't get onto this webinar?
Hold on. I'll put you on. You're on the webinar now. There you go.
Hey, Ryan.
All I can hear is you two talking and nothing else. And you want to be rolling with the punches, not rolling with the vibe.
Right. You tell Hayden that.
I actually
Listen,
thought about that.
right. Say hello to Hayden.
Hi, Chief. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
Are you rolling with the punches or what?
Rolling with the punches, man.
Sorry to interrupt. Let you guys go.
Cheers, Brian. Talk to you after. Thank you. Bye.
Nice. I knew I messed
I am
something up
now.
about this thing.
Thank you, Brian. I'm now completely thrown. I don't even know what question I was on. Hayden, were you saying something there, talking about recording drums?
Yeah, we were talking about recording drums.
Right, go for it.
I like record. I mean, because I play them, so I have a sort of an emotional tie to them. But I like how it depends so much on the room that you're in, and you can really like close mics on drums. Whatever, they sound fine, but it's really about the space and how you capture the space. So it can be
Mhm.
a small kitchen. We record in the kitchen here at the studio quite a bit because it has a really interesting room tone. It's kind of in between the huge rock sound and a dry, like 70s Fleetwood Mac type thing. Um, and then you can also go huge, and you can just put the mics wherever you want, and it is really interesting, and you can make make it whatever you want it to be.
Do you right? You've sent me down a path again. I apologise. Right, here we go. Do you do you do you religiously record drums to a click, or do you fix it post? And do you ever have clients who don't want to record to a click, and how do you deal with that?
99% of people record to a click in my experience,
Okay.
um, just because that's the way of modern music, and a
Yeah.
lot of people are recording instruments separately these days, and that's really hard to do if it wasn't done to a click to start.
Yep.
So yeah, most of the time with click. Every now and then a
Okay.
live thing with no click, and that's fine because everyone's playing together. So
Right. And just off the back of that again, and again, I'm just being genuinely geeky here.
hmm
Do you, what's the trend these days, or what do you guys prefer, or is it an artist decision or a producer decision even? Do you record the band live and like isolated, obviously, but live playing at the same time, or do you do drums then bass then guitars then vocals? Like, do you have a preference? What's the industry doing these days? Talk about
I think it's kind of 50-50. I don't personally really have a preference. It's sort of circumstantial. It's really fun to get a whole band in the room and listen to them play. I mean, that I enjoy that for
that.
sure.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time that doesn't work out just due to everyone's schedule or the studio schedule. Maybe you get in for 1 or 2 days and you do all the drums or something like that. So I think both are equally good, and I see sort of 50-50 happening.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. All right, moving on. I think. Oh no, this is another question I was genuinely interested to ask you. What is the best thing you've recorded? And that can be an album, a track, or like a take that was just perfect. Like what can you name that?
Well, I think I always want the next thing I do to be the best. So I'm gonna
Good
say
answer.
there's a few things coming out this year that you won't have heard yet,
Okay,
and I'd like to think that they are the best work that I've done. And then the
excellent.
next thing after that, and then the next thing after that.
Right, well, that's such a good answer. That's such a good answer. Kind of a safe answer as well because you're not then isolating anything from the past and making anyone else feel bad. But all good. I like
Yeah.
it. I respect it. I respect it. Clever, clever. Right. Okay. Let's talk a little more about the industry. Right. So we're going to talk about Songbox,
hmm
essentially. Right. Not directly, but essentially. So a lot of feedback we get from people who use the platform is along the lines of, "I'm doing this for a major label. It needs to be secure. Blah 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 blah." So do you use Songbox now for all your clients, or just Brian, or just a few? And more importantly, what did you do before that? What did you do before you discovered the platform?
Right. So I use it for everybody now.
Cool.
Um, and before that, I was sending MP3s or waves via email to whoever. So there would be huge email chains. You'd be sending files. They have to download it on their end.
Right.
Uh, Sometimes they can't play it back. They can't figure it out, or there were always lots of problems with that. So
Okay.
uh, yeah, Songbox was the perfect solution for what we needed for
Right.
it to be easier for the consumer, or not the consumer, but whoever's receiving the file to.
Yeah, the people on the receiving end,
Yeah.
and and just for clarity, Hayden has not been paid to say that. Everyone, that's a quite sure that's a genuine response. So when
Absolutely.
you what motivated you back in the day to be like, right, I'm going to go and find something, like I'm going to go and Google, and then you found us, thankfully, and I'm eternally grateful for that. But what was the motivation? Was there a moment where you just something snapped, or was it a slow build up of frustration over time?
I think it was a bit of a slow build up, but I was working with Brian and we had a project that we wanted to send to someone to listen, and it was 10 or 12 songs, something like that, that wasn't ready for anyone else to hear, so it needed
Yeah.
to be secure.
hmm
And we didn't want the person to have to download 12 different files and then figure out how to do it. And um, Brian actually said pretty much exactly what Songbox is. Like we need something that you open a link, you click the link, you put in a password, and then you click play.
Cool.
And
Cool.
then I went to work on Google and came across you guys, and it was the exact thing that we were looking for.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a cool story. I really like that. Let's
Yeah, it
just
was
leave it at
pretty
that.
pretty
That was like
perfect. Yeah.
that was like the perfect answer, which I couldn't even have. If I wrote a script to give you, what you just said was even better, man. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Because I feel like, so I don't know if you know this story, but back in the day when I was doing the band thing, I myself was sending out CDs to people, sending out emails to people, and I got really frustrated that you would never hear anything from these people. Like, and I'm sitting thinking, did they did they not receive it? Did they receive it but hate it? Did they receive it but not listen to it? And it really frustrated me. And then I was on tour 2008, I think. I was on a big tour with a very, very big American rock band, very prominent American rock artist, and this guy was submitting a track for American Idol. I think he was submitting a track for Chris Daughtry potentially, and
Oh yeah.
so we were like 3 weeks in, and he was recording the demo, and and then he sent it away, I presume, and then it was like 4 or 5 or 6 weeks in, and I said to him, "Did you ever hear anything back from American Idol?" And he was just like, "Oh," he's like, "You never hear from these people." And I'm thinking, well, if I'm like this nobody, and I've got this problem, and this guy's sold 60 million albums and won a Grammy award and an American Music Award and MTV awards and all that, that he's got the very same problem I have. Surely this is a problem. And what you just described that you and Brian were facing as well is pretty much the same thing. So that's brilliant. That's awesome.
So you
So
wanted
we're
to
gonna,
make it easier for them to hear, was what you were thinking.
yeah, totally, and also for me to find out. So that's something. Do you guys care about the data side of it? Like, do you guys care that you can look and see if someone's listened to it or not, or is that not a factor?
Sometimes I do.
Yeah,
Yeah, not all the time, but I have definitely looked at seen where and when someone is streaming for sure.
yeah, okay, that's cool. That's cool. Right, okay, I think we're going to move on, man. We're actually, oh my goodness, we're actually already 33 minutes in. That's unbelievable. This has been a really fun chat. So there's going to be a lot of engineers watching, and there's going to be those engineers are going to be at various stages in their career. I imagine quite a lot of young aspiring engineers will end up watching this video. What tips do you have? So what have I written down here to keep myself straight? Yeah. What advice to young engineers would you have in terms of progressing their career?
I think the best advice that I could give is to just do it. Do as much as you can all the time, and you're going to get better and you're going to meet more people and say yes to things and go places. Do whatever you have to do to feel like you're moving forward. And even if you don't feel like you're moving forward, just work on stuff because you will get better and it will happen.
That's cool. That's cool. Believe in yourself and keep going for it. I like it. Did you, in terms of career, did you go straight into studio work? Did you ever do live work, and or do you currently do live work? And is there a preference there?
No, I haven't really done a lot of live work. I sort of just fell in love with the studio recording world when I went to school. I thought the idea of it was really cool, and I loved the way that the warehouse sounded. I had never seen it or been here before, and I just kind of went with that, and I'm happy I did. I like the
Yeah, cool.
path.
Yeah, and bonus, you don't have to tour. Amazing.
Yeah.
So I've got a few more questions, but while I do, anyone listening, if you've got any questions for Hayden, drop them in the little question area of the interface. Hayden, what is the best advice you ever received?
I have two things. One is it's all about the vocal, and the second one from
He's telling me it's not all about the drums. You kidding on?
yeah. Second one was from a, a great mixing engineer that used to come to the warehouse all the time, and he said that in every mix something should be too loud because that's what gives it the character. If everything is perfect, it's not going to be exciting enough.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, so
Very
whether it's a
interesting.
guitar, maybe it's some fills are too loud or the cowbell is too loud or something.
So
Something's going to
a cowbell can never be too loud. I mean,
exactly, yeah.
that's a
It's
fact.
a bad
I mean,
example.
yes, that's a lot. Bad example. Yeah, bad example. You're right. Um, so what do you mean, like loud enough to like catch your ear? And you pull you out of a fugue state, like just too loud, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't forget it's all about the vocal, but
Yeah.
it need something should be a little louder than you think.
Okay, that's actually really interesting. Really interesting. I'm going to ponder on that. I've got a question here again, something that I'm interested to see if you can shed any wisdom for other engineers at any stage in their career. Do you have any technical tips? You got any little shortcuts, little hacks, little tricks in the studio? Do you have anything like that? Have you heard anything like that you could share?
Hmm, that's kind of a tough one. I mean, getting to know Pro Tools really well is your best friend.
Yeah.
Uh, we spend every day on it all day, so you need to know it in and out. But in terms of technical tricks, I would say don't get too bogged down with the technical stuff, and make sure it feels great and that it's working for the song. That's the most important. Your
Yeah,
technical uh, shortcuts aren't gonna make or break the song, so don't
yeah.
forget that.
Again, that's actually pretty excellent advice, and that, yeah, can totally relate to it. Can totally relate to that. Right, I've got one more question, and then we'll take some Q&A from the audience. We've got so my last question for you is Hayden, Grammy-nominated studio engineer Watson. You've achieved a lot. What are your goals? Where are you? Where are you in 5 years?
Well, in 5 years, I hope that I'm sitting in this very studio
Cool.
and that everything is
Don't
going
worry, man.
great.
Your boss isn't watching anymore. It's all good.
No, I mean, I love the studio. I love this place. And I hope to continue on this route and be mixing more records. I hope that I can continue on that path because it takes a while to sort of get down there.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I'd like to be, hopefully there's a few more Grammy nominated records to talk about in 5 years.
Yeah. I hope so. So I am. I'm going to ask you this on air so that you have to say yes, right? This is quite clever. So I'm writing again, and I'm recording again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you over my mixes, and I'm going to get free mixing from a Grammy-nominated studio engineer. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool?
Absolutely.
That is
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
brilliant, mate. This has been a fantastic call. I've now got a gig at the next Nickelback recording session in the bank,
Yeah.
and remixing from a Grammy-nominated studio engineer. This has been worth the stress. Amazing. Right. Okay, I got a couple of questions from the audience, and then we'll wrap up because we're heading towards 40 odd minutes, which I never ever thought would happen. Right. This is a cheeky one, and I don't know if you can answer it. Who are you working with this week?
Who am I working with this week? I suppose I can answer. As Brian has announced, he has a new record coming down the pipeline, so we're constantly going back and forth, finishing stuff up on that.
Cool. Awesome. Good stuff. So the answer to that question is Brian Adams is who you're working with this week,
Yes,
essentially.
and
Awesome.
also uh, one more thing to add: the
Yeah.
warehouse, the studio, is starting a cool platform called Live at the Warehouse, where we're going to bring in different artists to do live sessions, sort of like a Tiny Desk or a Live at Abbey Road situation. And that is starting tomorrow. So we have our first session tomorrow. I can't say who it is yet.
Is it
Uh,
Nickelback? Is it Nickelback? Is
it's
it
not
Nickelback?
Nickelback, but it's a great sort of younger BC artist that's doing really well right now. And
Right.
we're really excited about it. So I will be doing that this week as well.
That sounds actually awesome. Is that going to be available online anywhere? And if so, can
It
we
will
tout it?
be, yeah, eventually it'll take a little bit of time because a couple of the songs are yet to be released that we're going to record tomorrow.
Nice one. When those sessions come online, let us be your let us magnify the message for you, man. Just hook us up and we'll do what we
Yeah,
can.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that'd be cool. A couple more questions from the audience. Do you have a go-to microphone or piece of gear that you use in every session?
We use the Neumann U87 pretty much all of the time.
Cool.
Um,
For vocals and acoustic guitars or vocals?
yeah, vocals and acoustic guitar, and I like it on drum overheads, drum rooms. Super versatile. It sounds good pretty much on anything, and you can travel with it. I do a decent amount of recording outside of the studio,
Cool.
so it's super handy that way. And yeah, I'd say I use that probably the most.
Nice one. How much does a microphone like that cost?
I think they're like 4 grand.
That's actually not super crazy, is it? Given the
No, no, not at all. They're just tough and easy to find. And if you're going to do it, I think worth it to have a decent microphone that you can take anywhere.
cool, excellent. Right, last question, Hayden. Then we can both go and well, I can go and get my dinner, and you can go and get your brunch.
Yeah.
The last question. Let's see. We've got a few to choose from. Let's see what's going to go with. Right, this is an interesting one, only because I also have an anecdote that I can tell you here. So, are there obviously the Warehouse Studio is the finest studio in the land. obviously. Are there any other studios you admire or have visited and really liked?
There's lots of other studios that I admire, but I've never worked really at another studio. I was lucky enough to start here at the age of 18, and I've been here ever since. So I've never done any extensive work
Cool.
elsewhere, but I'd love to check out, Abbey Road or East West in LA. There's tons of huge ones that I'd love to see. Um,
Cool.
but this is the only one that I have a lot of experience in.
Okay. My less than impressive anecdote there is a few months ago, Kieran, my business partner, and I were in Nashville, and we were lucky enough to get a tour of Blackbird Studios. Are you aware of Blackbird Studios in
Yeah,
Nashville?
I'd love to see Blackbird too.
Yeah, it was actually really, really impressive. Like it was really impressive. They've got a drum room, not a drum recording room, like a drum
Oh,
storage
just
area.
drums. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you would love it.
I would like
Um,
that.
lots of, I mean, the guy who was giving the tour, he was literally like, this is the bass drum that the Beatles used to record, their big album or their big tracks,
Crazy.
and this is the drum kit that Led Zeppelin used for this, and it was just like,
Wow,
wow, this is nuts. It was like a drum museum. It was awesome.
that'd be
Um, right, we're somehow Hayden somehow made it to the end of the whole 45 minutes, and I cannot believe that's a thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say thank you very much for your time. I've actually really really enjoyed chatting to you.
thank
Um,
you too.
we got heckled by Brian as we thought we might, which is always fun.
It was perfect.
So, yeah, it was good timing actually. He got a little plug in for his new album or his new track, Roll with the Punches. So I'm going to thank Hayden. I'm going to thank everyone who tuned in. I'm going to thank everyone who is going to watch this in retrospect because we'll put it up on our YouTube channel. And if anyone is interested in a Songbox demo, get on the site. There's a link. You'll talk to this guy, and we'll run through Songbox and show you all the features with it. Hayden uses it, and Hayden's the man, so that's means it's awesome. Hayden, thank you so much, man. That was a really good chat. I really appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you.
That was really fun.
Cool. Talk to you later. Bye. Bye.
Yeah, see ya.